Good evening, everyone. I welcome everyone to this meeting of the Brantford Heritage Committee, and I call it to order. The roll call has been taken by the clerk. This meeting is being held in a hybrid format in accordance with Article 18 of the city's procedural bylaw. Staff and delegates participating virtually are reminded to keep their video and microphones off until requested by the chair or members of the committee. All cameras for virtual committee members shall remain on to ensure quorum. All members of the committee will vote by a physical show of hands. Please leave your hand raised until the chair has determined the result of the vote. In the event of a connection service interruption that occurs and affects quorum, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting will be adjourned. So we have an agenda that was circulated. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest with any items on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, there are no presentations and delegations, so we'll move quickly into our consent or items for consideration. So the first item is a proposed alteration to 203 Grant Ave, and we have Patrick with a brief presentation.
He's not turned on.
There is a sign.
It's not the official.
Thank you, Chair. So let's get the presentation on the screen for everyone. So this is for 203 Brant Avenue. The property is in the Brant Avenue Heritage Conservation District, and the specific scope of this alteration is a business sign. The applicant's moving their business, I think, from Charing Cross Street into the district, and they'd just like to replace the existing signage out front of the building with their own business branding. So we have the aerial photo and location map where the staff report. So it's on the northeast side of the street. The proposed sign is 3 feet tall, 2-post sign, 5.9 foot tall, 2-post sign in accordance with the district guidelines. I see also that apparently my the committee's in the way. Okay. So again, just in front of the existing building, it did not move on your side. In the report, we go through the sign bylaw regulations for the signage. The sign does look like it complies with all applicable regulations in the sign bylaw, and those regulations reflect what's in the district study. It has a 2-post recommended design. The applicant's actually going to reuse the existing posts as much as possible. I think their sign's a bit wider, but it'll use the existing front post at a minimum. As far as area, colored material, relationship to property, it complies with all the relevant regulations and the guidelines, and that ground sign with the 2 posts is the style we like to see in the district. So considering all that, we felt this was a fairly straightforward application, and the staff recommendation is to approve the heritage permit. That's it for me. I'm happy to answer any questions from the committee members.
Any questions for Patrick from anyone? Dan, go ahead.
Is there any lighting being added to the sign, or?
No, none. The applicant had talked to me and said they were thinking about lighting, but that they are aware of the spotlighting requirement, and at this time they don't have any proposed lighting, but the design of the sign won't allow for internal illumination. It would have to be from the front. Yeah.
Anything else from anyone? I have a quick question for Patrick. I noticed your table in there about the different versions of the sign bylaw. It's been a while since we've had a sign request, I think, for the Heritage.
Yeah, I think it has been a while.
And I remember previously we did have a problem that certain portions may not have been met by some things. And I really liked this table because it clearly outlines all the requirements that you're looking at and clearly identifies whether it complies with the sign bylaw or not. So I really like seeing that in your report.
This is one of the few instances, Chair, where we actually have like regulations that are a clear yes or no, right? With the guidelines, they tend to be more, you should approach it this way, or you should try to do this. So it made more sense to demonstrate the compliance in that sort of like the zoning table you might see at rate adjustment.
Great, thank you. If no one else has any other questions, I would entertain a motion to receive this report, and that the report be approved. I see Councillor Sullivan and Tamara Capoli as a seconder. Any other questions about the item before I call the vote?
Sorry.
Yeah.
And maybe more of a question, online on Brantford website, heritage section, is that table visible for anybody that would want to go on if they're looking to put a sign on the property?
To the chair, no, that table is not available, but the sign bylaw is linked to right on the heritage webpage under design guidelines. If someone clicks that link, they can go right to the full sign bylaw and see all kinds of regulations for all kinds of signs in the city. And that includes the guidelines for heritage districts.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. I declare that carried. We will move on to item 4.2, a proposed alteration to 266 Brant Ave. Patrick also has a brief presentation for this one.
Chair. So this is for 266 Brent Avenue. It's application, sorry, HA 0724. Again, this property is in the Brent Avenue Heritage Conservation District. It's actually at the intersection of Brent Avenue and Ada. This aerial is, I think, before we installed the barricades, but Ada is currently closed off. So part of the property is accessed from one side, the other, then pedestrian is accessed from Brent Avenue proper. The scope of this application for committee members is masonry work and predominantly just mortar repointing. These photos are actually provided by the mason the applicant hired, so they detailed all the locations where work will be occurring, all the removal of bricks and replacing with new units. You can see on the rightmost image, there were prior sort of mortar or quick style repairs, just filling in the damaged brick, but all that is being worked on. We have the full scope of pictures attached in the appendix to the staff report. The applicant is also having the foundation addressed. They did bring me inside the building. There's no sign of water entry, which is a good sign. Everything's dry, but they just noticed on the outside mortar was popping out between the stone foundation. Just some more photos. So this is comprehensive. This is around the entirety of the building. It's a mixed-use building. There's a office on the ground floor, residential above. But yeah, they're looking at the entirety of the building to make sure they get all the mortar repairs needed. So again, they've shown their quote. The mason is very thorough and clear about where the work will be happening, the scope of the repairs, and the quote showed the appropriate lime mortar and matching brick will be used. So staff are recommending that this heritage permit also be approved by the committee. Happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Okay, questions for committee members? Okay, I see Bill first. I'm gonna go Bill first for a change. I need Bill, maybe, in case I get any items of it. I get that one. Okay, Bill.
I have a question as to the mortar. The Brantford brick, the red brick, is a very soft brick, and it requires a soft mortar, a type O. I'm wondering if that was specified.
So through chair, the submission material in appendix C, I'm just gonna pull out. So the repointing will have grinding or chiseling out every mortar joint necessary to make sure it's clean, and then 20 bricks, including mortar, material, labor disposal. They will repoint with new mortar. 2020 bricks. I do believe there was some discussion. From what I understand, the Brantford brick was a white brick, and correct me if I'm wrong. So would this not be the slightly stronger later Ontario standard size red clay be a bit more durable than the soft white Brantford brick?
Well, the red brick, I have an Edwardian on William Street, and we had the side of the house repointed, and it required a type O mortar. The mortar has to be softer than the surface of the brick, or you end up with spalling.
And my understanding, so yeah, sorry, it was documented in the report. So it was a separate communication, a number of back and forth. They confirmed a type N mortar, but my understanding is we've seen that before quite often, recommended by masons for these buildings. And my understanding was it was the whiter brick that was the softer Brantford brick. But you're saying you have seen different specifications?
Yes.
Okay, so what I could do, if the committee's okay with it, is mention this to the applicant and have them talk to their mason about going with the softer type O,
Yes.
based on committee members' experience.
Excellent. Thank
And
you.
then we can provide that in writing to the applicant.
Very good.
Perfect. Thank you. Tamara. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I'm right. I'm back.
Just wondering
Dan,
if
go
they're,
ahead.
yeah.
Is the, I don't know how to say this nicely, but is the company a reputable company that in town? Like, it should be specified right in the quote itself that it's a heritage lime-based mortar.
Yeah, I have seen work from them before, and they've come through and supported applications for heritage grants. And they had I'm remembering the file specifically, they did a pretty good job of matching even the color for one of the grant applications we had when we did the final inspection. But
And so are they asking for a heritage grant at all?
they are.
Oh, they are asking.
It's a lower, you can see the quote that they provided, so it is below
Yeah.
the threshold to come to Heritage Committee. They just taken the heritage permit through.
Okay.
And this is one of them you will see like reported on at the end of the year as applications that have come before staff, and then whether or not they're final, then you'd see some final photos of the completed work.
Okay. And they only need one quote.
They only need the one photo.
That was where I was going with the grant and getting these two quotes.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Sorry, one other thing. In the future, when people are applying for these types of things, should they, whoever talks to the people, that should it be specified in the quote?
We do try to get that where we can.
Okay.
Sometimes, again, the applicants talk to us after they've spoken with their contractor, and they might be waiting on the quote before we have a chance to look at it, but we do usually recommend they specify the matching brick, where they're getting it if they can, if they know, and they specify the type of mortar. So that's why in this case, it was a follow-up discussion after the fact, but wasn't part of the main quote. We did get the type.
And not that it has to be, but I would prefer to see a pre-mixed mortar that just add water type of mortar compared to a mixture on site where you don't know who's mixing it to be proper. Just
No, fair.
Any other questions for members of the committee? Bev, go ahead.
The foundation is actually constructed at a different, appears to be stone. So what would be used to report that in?
From what I've seen, those pre-bagged mortars are usually rated for all types of historic masonry, unless they're a very, very specific thing. Trying to think of the file. It might have been 108 to 112 George Street. Then we had the applicant come in and we talked to them about the mortars. Sherry, you had the question about the mortar being used. So when I was looking up the coarse or very coarse pre-mix type N mortars that were designed for heritage structures, or at least branded for that on the website, they seem to be, I'll say general purpose in the sense it wasn't like brick only or stone only. They seem to be rated or sold for, yeah, all types of historic masonry.
Good question, clarification, Beth. I just had one quick question too, and it does relate to the grant. What was the threshold that we said that it had to be before we needed the two quotes and it came to the committee for approval?
If the eligible costs exceed $15,000 and the grant is over $7,500.
Right, okay. That's good clarification. This may be one of the first ones that we've seen under this.
Yeah, one of the sort of crop of applications, yes.
Perfect. Okay, so if there's no other questions from committee members, then I would entertain a motion to receive and approve this application. I see Dan Brown and Pat as a seconder. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you, everyone. I declare that carried. Moving right along. We have item 4.3, a proposed alteration to 34 Palace Street. Patrick also has a brief presentation for this one.
There may be a theme.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So this is application HA 0924 for 34 Palace Street. This property is individually designated. It's designated by bylaw 1195, and that is appendix C of the staff report. Something we noted in the staff report, but not fully shown except for the aerial photo. The property was built as a single detached dwelling and a long time ago had been split into a semi-detached building. I'm not talking like 20 years. I think it was maybe 50 plus. So both halves of the current semi-detached building are designated. So it's like 1095 and 1195 are the two bylaws. They are in separate ownership. This is just the exterior, sort of the corner, the new corner lot, and the interior part of the the standard lot is not part of this application. So the applicant had called me and had asked about the grant program. The proposal is to do repointing to the chimney at the rear of the main dwelling. And to do so, the applicant had been looking for reclaimed brick that would match the shade, but their mason was having a very hard time finding something that was actually the right color. There were lots of examples of sort of present day buff brick that were too dark, that did not look and would not look right with the color of the building. So the applicant talked to their mason, and the approach they settled on was to dismantle the rearmost chimney, the one in red, but to use all those reclaimed bricks to make sure that the chimney at the rear of the original dwelling could be fully restored to its original design. We looked at the designation bylaw as staff, and we note that this may be reflective of the era, the mid-90s, and how designations were done by council and heritage committee and staff at the time. The bylaw does not speak to that little addition, that little rear portion of the building where the chimney in red is. That is just not mentioned in the designation bylaw at all. There is reference to the Italian architecture of the main building and the ornate chimneys, but it counts them very clearly and speaks to all the ones, those larger, more ornate ones on the main part of the house, not that little rear addition. So while a historic component of the building, that little tail, that little addition does not have that same architectural styling as the rest of the dwelling. For that reason alone, we're looking at this as something that we feel could be supported. It's not impacting the reasons the property was designated or the list of the heritage attributes that can contribute to the architectural style of the building. It's not that it is not an ornate chimney, but there was clearly a reason or information they had at the time. I couldn't find it clearly documented in the file. But with respect to the work, the applicant is showing that they would dismantle, not just dispose of the chimney, but dismantle it, salvage the bricks from the chimney, store them for future use around the building as well. So they will have a supply of era appropriate, color appropriate bricks they could draw from. and they are using a lime mortar for this work as well. To the discussion we just had, we can send in an email, a recommendation from the committee that they look for a type O mortar. This is closer to that light Brantford brick, and it is a building from the 1800s, so it is much more likely it was the Brantford brick that we're familiar with. So on consideration, staff are recommending that this alteration be approved and that the applicant can proceed with removal of one chimney, which is not called out in the designation bylaw, but to make sure that one of the four more ornate chimneys does remain on the property. So that concludes my staff presentation. I'm happy to answer questions from the committee.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions for Patrick? Dan, go ahead.
Maybe not just a question, but a comment. I don't think they looked hard enough for the bricks. I do believe that they're out there. There's different, there's a buff, there's a yellow, there's a red and an orange and all that sort of thing, but yeah, I think they could have looked a little bit harder to find the bricks. I also think they have to be careful dismantling the chimney itself, because there's some interior bricks that are different from the exterior bricks, and if they get them mixed up, use them on the outside of the house, they're gonna deteriorate very fast.
No, Chair, I've heard that as well, and I sort of mentioned that when we were having that first site meeting. But I've seen this issue crop up of softer bricks on the inside.
Any other questions for Patrick? So this one similarly is getting a grant? for the
We
work?
talked about it and the scope, so they'd only be eligible for the work that deals with that, or that one chimney at the rear of the main dwelling, the one that was in yellow. So similarly, it's a low dollar grant compared to, let's say, a full restoration of every part of the building.
Yeah. And then I noticed the designation button. Can you put up the chimney picture again? 2 chimneys.
One moment.
Well, the designation bylaw says there are 2 original double chimneys protruding from the roof.
And again, so the bylaw, and I just to clarify, it is per half of the building because it's a semi-detached building. So it says 2 because there are 2 on this side and 2 on the other half of the semi. You can see one of the other chimneys sort of poking up.
So the chimney in between the 2 that you've highlighted is the one on the other designation.
Yes,
And so the one highlighted in yellow and the one to the right of the yellow are
Correct.
the ones that are designated.
are on this property.
Perfect. Thank you for clearing.
Yes.
I'd just like make a comment over here. The museum had a chimney similar to this. And all of a sudden, a couple of weeks ago, water started leaking out of the chimney. And it's entirely sealed, so I don't know how water got in there, but I'm hoping that when this applicant does their work, that chimney is sealed properly so that there's no way for further moisture to get in and degrade the chimney structure. Because the chimney will still exist underneath the roof line.
Yes, so the code specifies in addition to the lime mortar, a limestone cap. So they are making sure that the chimneys are properly sealed in both cases. So the one in red, the one highlighted in red will be removed below the roof line and roofed over. But that roofing work is not part of the masonry repairs. It's not part of the grant either.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm sharing so you can see the other members.
Dan has another question. Go ahead.
What is
Dan.
the roof material on the addition?
I believe it's just asphalt.
Okay, with no other questions from committee. Oh, sorry, Bev.
Not a question, comment. I was by this house the other day and did observe the chimneys, and that one that will be worked on is quite precarious, and it's a far more substantial chimney than what we can see here on that photo, and it's been quite nicely done, so it's great that it'll be repaired.
Great.
Yeah.
Tamara?
Yeah, one of the other applications we had, it was for demolition for development. I don't know what it was on West Street, but like, I'm sure that we made a recommendation that they try to salvage some of the brick, stockpile it somewhere, if there was access in the city lot or anything like that, this would have been a prime example
Yeah,
of something that we could have used that kind of material for, and not even in long range, like literally, they just took it down, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, if I'm recalling, that was a zoning bylaw amendment from quite a few years ago now, 2020 maybe?
Yeah.
2021?
Yeah, for new subdivision. down
And
there.
as I understand, they were about to come in for site plan. The zoning had been approved by council much closer to when the committee made comments.
Yeah.
That was communicated to the owner. I believe ownership changed in the interim too. So
Yeah,
when it's not a heritage property, it becomes hard to sort of require they salvage something or tie them to a certain course of action. But that was,
so we can request value.
yes, so that was written in the minutes.
Yeah.
It was communicated to the applicant
Okay.
through the zoning comments at the time.
All right, thank you.
I know there was a similar issue in the county where they demolished a building, or they reclad a building. They took down the entire front half, and they claimed that they tried everything to find buff brick, and they really tried nothing, because I called to one person and found some resources for buff brick, and I talked to some other heritage experts, local heritage experts, who have determined that it is quite easy to get buff brick. So it always concerns me when the applicant says that they tried and they failed to locate any, because there often is an abundance of buff brick around, and having some available would help kind of enhance our conservation efforts towards heritage buildings in the local area. So anything that can be done to help encourage that, I definitely think the Heritage Committee would support that moving forward. Dan?
Not to give away any secrets or anything, but the next heritage group meeting that Brant County is hosting, the guest speaker will be talking about demolitions and salvage from the demolitions, what we should be doing with it. It'd be an interesting topic.
Do you have any insights as to when that meeting may be?
I heard middle of April.
Okay, so something to keep on our agendas for future. So we have the recommendation that this be received and approved. Would anyone entertain making said motion? See Adam, seconded by Tamara. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. I declare that carried. Moving right along. We have a proposed alteration to 88 Deluzzi Street, the Sanderson Center. Patrick also has a very brief report on this.
Actually, to clarify, I believe the acting director of economic development is joining us virtually. Staff who are going to speak to this at the September meeting are otherwise at a conference, so he's speaking for them.
Okay, Joe, go ahead if you have anything to add.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Muto, Acting Director of Economic Development, Tourism and Cultural Initiatives. We're in support of staff's recommendation regarding the report in front of you this evening. I'm here to basically fill in for Miss Davy and Miss Briggs, or one's at a conference and I believe one's on vacation. So just a quick little bit of information for the committee this evening is that this mural will likely be unveiled in November. Staff did hold multiple community consultations and stakeholder consultations with the artist to agree on a final design. The mural will basically showcase the life and work of Mr. Phil Hartman from his early childhood days in the city of Brantford to Hollywood and everything in between. It's basically a celebration of color, art, life, and creativity. We think that this public mural of art will really enhance the existing building as well as the downtown. There is perhaps some opportunity to also seek through the Sanderson Center staff for some lighting to showcase that in the evenings as well. I think that pretty much sums it up. I can also say that the artist will focus on an anti-graffiti towards the bottom. So we're hoping that that the mural itself will last or have a longer lifespan because of that. Happy to answer any questions that the committee might have for me this evening, and I will do my best to answer them.
Any questions for Joe from the committee? Okay, Adam, go ahead.
I had a bit of a comment, but you did address it, that the antique graffiti, that I know that there is a product that they could put on maybe bottom 10 feet, that can save the mural in the case of vandalism, which you can obviously still remove. So, but it was great to hear that already stated.
Great. Tamara?
Any updated pictures of what it looks like now? It's for you, Joe.
Through the chair. I know, like, I was at City Hall on Friday. The artist is I think a Toronto-based artist. Like, I can tell you, overall, we did receive a lot of interest in this art piece. I think we've reviewed at least 61 applications. There was about over 40 from within Ontario, 18 from other Canadian provinces, and 26 from out of country. So there was a lot to review here. In terms of what it looks like, I don't have the ultimate. I mean, it is a creative piece that the artist is working on, so it could potentially look a little different than what was originally, identified from the creative standpoint of that particular artist. But I know if you're out there at City Hall today, she is working on there over the last few weeks to diligently try to hit that November, first week of November type of unveiling. So hopefully that answers it. I don't have an ultimate piece of what it will look like, but it will include a number of work that Mr. Hartman did work on in terms of, The Simpsons, and getting even Matt Groening to give us the seal of approval for using those characters that he represented in the show, as well as News Radio and some of the other works from SNL that Mr. Hartman was involved with through his professional career as an actor and artist.
Okay, great. Councillor Sullivan.
No, just further to that, I actually just drove by it about an hour ago. It looks like it's probably 85 to 90% completed. So I really recommend people go by and take a look because it looks amazing.
Any other questions for Joe? I just have one, and it popped into my head oddly enough today. I visited Acton in the summer, and Acton has a similar mural that they did at a main intersection, and I believe it was done in 2000. And since 2000, and not on that city-owned property, they then started planting trees, and now the trees have grown to completely obstruct the mural. So does the city have a plan for like the long-term conservation of this? I know you mentioned the anti-graffiti at the bottom, but is there like a sealant later going over top to help protect the integrity of the mural going forward?
Through you, Chair. To answer your questions, the specifics, I'm kind of reluctant to really specify, other than knowing that the murals, or this type of mural, will have a lifespan of at least 10 to 15 years. Through that, if there are updates, I mean, council can direct staff to then do another tender, if you will, to see if there's some updates we can do to keep the mural. I think we have to remember that it is beside a parking lot, so not owned by the city. We can't stop them from doing or planting anything on their property, but we're going to do whatever we can to ensure that the mural is in place for many years to come.
And it's part of the like public art program, the mural, is that correct?
Yeah,
or
so
no?
correct. So it's correct, Chair. So through the public art policy that was prepared by staff, and there will be for committees to attend information, there will be opportunity to also understand our new public policy, which we are aiming to bring forward to council later this year, probably in December or November of this year. So it did follow that protocol or that corporate policy with respect to our public art program.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, if there are no more questions for Mr. Muto, we'll head over to Patrick's brief report.
Thank you, Chair. We're gonna have a similar short presentation. For this. So keeping in mind, this was originally prepared for for the September meeting date. The Sanderson Center is a city-owned property. This property is individually designated. It was designated in 1988 by bylaw 124 of that year. So we did provide that in the appendix, the report. Remember, looking at that bylaw, you will see it's actually a bit unique for a designation bylaw in Brantford. So it speaks to the front facade, but then also the interior, the actual theater space. The wall in question, shown in the aerial photo, is actually the gray stucco wall facing, again, the adjacent property of the parking lot. I don't have the exact date the stucco was installed, but maybe 10, 20 years ago. It's not a new addition. So again, the wall in question, this is the wall. Again, we can see that stucco has been there for some time, but it is sun faded. So we're not dealing with a part of the building and the property that has heritage attributes on it. We're not obstructing any original features of the building. And again, this wall would have always been at best a secondary wall because it was a party wall with what used to be another building. So the stucco is in effect almost like an extra protective layer over top of what would have been one of those interior walls with those interior bricks we previously talked about under the other applications. So with the scope of murals versus heritage permits, I do want to clarify the scope of the Heritage Committee is not the subject matter experts on the design of the public art. And there was a process sort of implementing what has become a sort of a de facto standard in Ontario. The public is consulted for inspiration. That is taken, put into a tender document that the artists can then review and bid on. And then a steering committee is made, but it provides sort of a second level of inspiration or comments. It doesn't approve the exact design. They may see bits or pieces, but they don't actually say, of these 5 designs, this is the one you get to paint. They kind of more approve a direction, and then the artist is given the free rein to implement the direction they've got. But the committee is important because it provides that input. Is an alteration appropriate or inappropriate for a historic building? In this case, we have what used to be a party wall. It has long since been stuccoed over. It was never a main wall of the building, never had heritage attributes. In this case, we know this is a temporary piece of public art. Again, temporary is different between let's say a bronze monument or a cannon or a statue versus a mural. But it's temporary. And the concerns, I would say, from a staff perspective are if you were, let's say, painting a mural onto an original exposed exterior brick wall, would you be covering up architectural details? Would you be obscuring the bond pattern of the brick? Would the paint be low quality? And would it potentially trap water and moisture in the wall in those, in the winter when you're gonna have the ice forming and that'll cause more damage? In this case, those were things that would have been considered when the stucco was applied. Are we installing this stucco so that we can keep the wall underneath safe? And to my knowledge, there's also never been concerns about water entry along this side of the building into the Sanderson Center. Again, it's city owned. We have heritage attributes on the inside. Likely we would have heard if they had to address an issue like that, and it would have been a bigger issue. So from the staff perspective, well, yes, we are installing a mural on the heritage property. It is not impacting the heritage attributes, and it's not likely to provide any negative impacts to the building itself. This is a performance venue, and a mural to honor an actor or performer with ties to Brantford. This is a fitting location, highly visible in our downtown, so staff are recommending that the permit be approved. That concludes again, the summary staff presentation, or I guess rather an overview of my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Any questions from the committee? Can always count on Dan. Go ahead.
You don't need to be sheepish. There's no limit to questions over the whole night. It's just 2 per item, I think.
Was the roof or the capping ever looked at above the mural before the mural started to be painted?
Yeah, so through the chair, so we, our facilities team has actually been looking at the Sanderson Center and has been applying new waterproofing and inspecting the roof this past summer. Members may have seen them up on the roof painting sort of like a bright yellow compound. That was part of the layers of actually doing a new water coat on the entire roof, not just the theater space. So it is freshly waterproof. And they would have been up close with all services on the roof while they were doing that and seeing if there are any issues. But yes, they are freshly waterproof the roof this past summer.
And like painting brick, damage that could do, does that hold still with stucco as well? I've never painted stucco.
Yeah, this is going to be a more modern side or coating, right? This is not a historic stucco building. It would have been put in 20 years ago, so I don't think there would have been an impact the same way. There's a different, application way to install stucco. Often I see it done over styrofoam with the waterproofing in behind, and then the styrofoam provides a nice smooth surface. Likely it would have been an application like that and wouldn't impact the mural or vice versa.
But the paint on the stucco, it doesn't affect the stucco.
No, because if the water gets through, the concern is, again, it can be touched up if there's damage to the paint or the stucco, but the concern is water getting trapped in the wall and then sort of that, expansion and spalling of brick. That's why we'd have concerns if it was an original brick wall. Yeah. But no, the stucco would likely have been built with water channels and that separation to allow any water to drain away from the wall at the bottom.
Anything else? I guess I have one question about this. With regards to the comments received. I noticed that there's comments received from Let's Talk Brantford. So were all city residents able to participate in this?
Yes. Yeah, it's a public facing website the city uses for a number of projects. It's designed to be sort of our main one-stop, here's what the city of Brantford is doing website. So yes, anyone can register for a free account and can provide comments on any projects the city's consulting on.
Including our heritage register or heritage conservation districts?
Those are targeted to the owners of the properties in those areas.
Yeah.
So we talked about this, I think, in March, and do we do a broad citywide consultation? Do we do neighborhood association level consultation, or do we target just the owners? So we focused for that project on the owners because they're the target, and we are notifying them directly. This is, like if you're doing a Parks and Rec plan, if you're doing an environmental assessment project, something that can be citywide in scope and anyone can comment on it.
Okay.
So yes, the first phase was open to any member of the public to provide comment and direction.
Okay. Any other questions for Patrick? Seeing none, we have a motion that this be received and this be approved. Does anyone want to make that motion? I see Councillor Sullivan, seconded by Councillor Samwell. Any discussion on the motion? I have one comment. I note that on this, there are 8 comments out of a city of 100,000 residents. And the reason that our heritage conservation districts didn't go forward is because of the lack of input from residents. And the rate of respondents from our heritage conservation district were significantly higher than this. And it seems disingenuous that we have a consultation program and sometimes people's opinions are listened to, and sometimes for our heritage conservation districts, the response rate was higher and that was not listened to. So with that, if there are no other discussion on this motion, I will call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. I declare that carried. We'll now move on to consent items. We have the minutes from August 24th, as well as our no quorum minutes from September 23rd. Are there any errors or omissions that people notice that needed to be corrected? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion that both these sets of minutes be approved. Tamara, seconded by Pat. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question for approval of the minutes. All those in favor? Thank you. I declare that carried. There are no resolutions and notices of motion. I will point out to members that we are still going to have another October meeting, correct? So just because we did this one to make up for September, don't think that you're off on good behavior for the end of the month, and continue to inform Juan, our clerk, about your attendance at meetings so that we can ensure the city's business can continue to move forward. With that being said, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Tamara, thank you, everyone. Have a great night.